tea time.
Welcome everybody! Souldin of the Grin brothers here, and it's time for another episode of Tea Time. Now then, for today's tea time, well, I guess, first off, Happy New Year everyone! We are now officially in 2020. Although, to save on time, I'm recording this on New Year's Eve rather than New Year's Day, because then I have to put this audio with the video and edit it and render it and then turn it on the laptop and then use my village's internet connection to try and upload it, which takes ages. So yeah, it's a little bit early, but New Year's Day in advance. On the day you'll be watching this, well, it will have officially become 2020. You could be watching in the future at this point, so who knows. In any case, Happy New Year, and for today's tea I shall be trying out Heather tea. It's a tea that my little brother, Rafi, and his girlfriend got for me when they went and visited Scotland. It's a black tea. Brew time is 3 to 5 minutes. And the brand here is Edinburgh Tea and Coffee Company. Information: a tea with heather blossoms and flavouring. It combines a delicate blend of Africa and Assam complements to create a fine tea. There was also a little bit more information on the tea bag itself, the tea bag packet rather than the box. Which complements the added heather blossoms flowering across the slopes of the Highland Mountains of Scotland. So yeah, I've been saving this tea up. I would have had it earlier for a tea time, but then I had Christmas calendar, which was nothing but teas. So expect quite a few tea times in the future of me drinking teas out of a Christmas calendar box. As I do every year for New Year's Day, today's tea time shall be covering my top 3 games of 2019. And originally it used to be 6, but that meant the videos were a bit too long, and I've reduced how many games I play each year because I end up buying more games than I actually have the time to play. Being an adult's tough. You don't have the time to play nearly as much, and I don't even have a full-time job yet. Part of that is also uploads and such. Sometimes, you know, like say if the Xbox One needs an update sort of thing, well, whilst I'm uploading a video, I can't do that. I'd knacker the internet connection, all that sort of thing. But this year I've played 9 games, I think it was. 9 games are released this year. There was, which I'll have thrown up on screen, which 9 games are in the competition here. I didn't purchase Kingdom Hearts 3 myself. That was one of my brothers. So that's a case of playing it but not owning it. And otherwise, actually my brothers haven't actually purchased, owned many games of this year. Rafi got Daemon X Machina, but he got that as a Christmas present. So, not many games of this year. And there was other games I considered getting this year. I considered getting Power Rangers Battle for the Grid, Samurai Showdown, Dragon Quest 11, even Fire Emblem Three Houses, even though I suck at SRPGs, Luigi's Mansion 3, but for one reason or another I didn't end up getting them. There's also another game that's not featured on this list, and that's the digital version of Final Fantasy IX for the Nintendo Switch, because it is just a port of Final Fantasy IX with no real major changes aside from a few menu differences, because it was originally a mobile phone port. It's not included on this because it doesn't feel like a 2019 game. That, and it'd be a unfair advantage given, as you may know, Final Fantasy IX is my second favourite video game of all time. So, not putting that in the competition, otherwise number 1 isn't even a contest. Was what my favourite game of the year is. Anyways, these are the games I played this year. And, moving on, I shall now start talking about my top 3 favourite games of 2019. Starting, of course, with number 3, and ironically, it's the very last game I played this year, a game I got for Christmas, and on a system that I'm not sure, has this system actually ever featured in my top 6 or top 3 games lists before? Because I don't tend to talk about the system much, because it's the one game on the PS4 I own this year, and potentially my last PlayStation purchase of all, really, because given the direction Sony's going with the PlayStation systems and their censorship and their other game policies and such. It is Medieval for the PS4, the remake of the original PlayStation Medieval. Now, I've only really played Medieval in demo form on the PlayStation, seen footage of it, and played the Medieval PSP version, which is a remake but alters quite a few details. So, in a sense, the PS4 is a bit of a fresh air, because whilst I am familiar with a lot of elements from having seen them before, in different ways, or in having played the demo, I never got to fully experience the PlayStation version due to only ever owning a demo, and Medieval on the PS4 is wonderful. It shows just how well the original Medieval game has aged. It's very different from a lot of modern games in a lot of aspects. Like, it's very strange playing a action adventure, almost hack and slash game where there's very little hit knockback to your attacks, only like charge attacks knockback. So a lot of the time you're having to fight enemies not so much by combos or such, or stunning them like that, is by actually just running around in circles hitting them, or doing hit and run tactics to charge up your charge attack. It's all very interesting in how it differs from modern games, but it's also amazing how well it holds up. Of course, with the PS4 remake, it's had a big graphical facelift, but the environmental design is still really cool. Souldin and the general humour of the game is still absolutely wonderful. The locations stick to their theming whilst being varied, and lots of cool little hidden secrets. There's, of course, problems with it in terms of the fact that it sticks so faithfully to the PlayStation version from what I've seen, that there's a lot of modern quality of life improvements that feel they've not been included. Like, a map would have been helpful. Some of these levels do get rather confusing, particularly when you're trying to find secrets. And it doesn't always keep track of everything, every little detail you want it to keep track of. Like, there was this one mission where I was having to find these little firefly things, and they changed up how you got the chalice in it. Like, usually you find the chalice somewhere, but in this case, or when you collect everything, they suddenly, give you the chalice. But in this case, you didn't really get the chalice from collecting the fireflies until you beat the boss of the area, which was a bit jarring. But otherwise, yeah, Medieval stars Sir Dan Fortescue, a skeleton brought to life, unintentionally, by an evil wizard. And Sir Dan Fortescue went down in legend as the legendary warrior who defeated said evil wizard. Except that was actually a lie. He actually got killed in the very first volley of arrows, an arrow going for his eye. So he's out to redeem himself, as it were, by actually defeating the evil wizard and actually living up to the honour that ended up incorrectly being bestowed upon him. And in doing so, he hopes that when he passes away again, when the evil wizard is properly defeated, he'll be accepted into the Hall of Heroes. So yeah. It's cool story, lots of humour to it, really good sort of. It was released on around Halloween time for Sony, and it is definitely one of the best games to showcase a Halloween vibe to it. And yeah, a lot of fun and quite different from a lot of other games in some of its design. It's surprising how well the touchpad works as the select button. It's just a really large select button. They don't try to do anything nuanced with it sort of thing, but it works really well to just quickly get up the quick menu to switch what items you've got. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun, really charming. The really thing that really strikes me is how well it holds up in terms of its game design, despite how a lot of its aspects aren't really modern anymore. Like, not many games really compared to it in a modern sense. So it feels more unique as a result. It feels like it's doing stuff others aren't. Like, if I didn't know it was a remake, I'd say, oh man, this game is really fresh in how it approaches the action-adventure sort of gameplay. Any case, that is my third favourite game of 2019, and surprisingly latecomer into it, given I got that for Christmas, but I've been playing an awful lot since Christmas. Due to the current video game that we're recording, I may stop playing it for a little bit, because the current game that we're recording, the first up Grin Brothers playthrough of 2020, is on the PS4, but I look forward to diving back into it. Much like how I look forward to diving back into my number 2 game, because I ended up taking a bit of a pause from it. However, I have covered it on the YouTube channel before, because you saw my first impressions of it. My second favourite game of 2019 is Code Vein for the Xbox One. I've waited so long for this game. I'm not a big fan of, say, the Souls series, but, I don't know, the anime aesthetic of Code Vein, of basically being anime Dark Souls, really drew me in. And oh my gosh, they really live up to that anime inspiration sort of thing. It feels like Dark Souls, but with more hope and with more individual characters. There's more banter between them. It's just a more charming experience. The core gameplay itself is really cool. A little bit tough to get used to compared to other games and rather punishing. But the first level actually eases you into it very well, with quite a few frequent save points. So you actually get a good grasp of what to do early on. Cool. So the game is basically, there was like an experiment with this queen thingy, and she was making all these kinds of problems. So humans turned themselves into, well, some humans turned themselves into vampire creatures called revenants to fight the queen. Queen was defeated, but then the queen kind of released this thing which ended up sealing everyone into this massive area. And the revenants start to go crazy if they don't have blood after a while, and the blood sources were starting to run out. Then your character comes along with amnesia, and they have the power to restore the blood springs, which is basically a alternative means to keep the revenants sane and filled up, rather than draining all the humans. So you go about playing as Revenant, you get party members, and you play in a very Souls-esque thing. Your attacks are a bit slow, enemies don't get hit stunned. Ironically, much like Medieval. And you have to do a lot of dodge rolling, parrying and such, because, oh gosh, enemies hit like a truck. It's very easy to die if you're not careful. Carelessness is punished extremely. Such as that time in my Code Vein playthrough where I walked off a ladder and almost killed myself. But it feels an easy way. You get like rejuvenation, sort of like you have to heal yourself by like 4 or 5 times. You get more as you progress through the game. There's unlike some of the Souls games I've seen, there's a lot of different classes you can choose to change up your character's style. They have lots of abilities you can learn, and as you learn them by using those abilities more often and using those classes more often, you get the option to put those abilities on your character regardless of class once you've used that ability enough. Which is admittedly something I didn't do in my initial first impressions, and it's like I'm kicking myself too. But I'm not doing. But it's something I will do when I actually start playing the game again, because I'm probably going to restart from the beginning, because they've actually been doing quite a lot of updates to give the game more longevity. In Halloween, for instance, they gave a witch hat, so I was able to put a witch hat onto Nanka. And in Christmas time, they've actually done, along with Christmas decoration updates, they've added a few sort of like extra trials for endgame content, as well as, you know, more options in the character creator. The character creator is both amazing and, yeah, a little bit flawed. It was amazing in the sense of what you could do with, like, there's tons of different eyebrow options, you can colour everything. The clothing was surprisingly diverse, given it was limited to like 9 or 10 sets. But now they've actually given, with the recent update, they've given the ability to actually change a character's height. But from the looks of it, I'm going to have to restart over just to do that. But it would be nice to be able to finally get Nanka the right body size and everything for the game. So I will actually be playing back from the beginning. So it's kind of a good thing I didn't end up progressing too much, because I got distracted by other things, like Pokemon Sword and Shield came out around the time, and I got a Christmas job. So my time was ended up being taken up quite a bit. But Code Vein, really nice aesthetic, really challenging, but I think going back into it, I have a better sense of what to do. But it is quite fair in how it eases you into it. And, you know, and the stats are a bit confusing, but overall, it's a great game, well worth the wait. I had a receipt for it, pre-order receipt for it for so long that it's faded away with age. Like, I had the pre-order receipt for like 2 years at least, so... And I finally got to use it. And who doesn't like a game where conveniently you have a hot spring in the area and you just can sit out with all your party members and just bathe in the hot springs together. In any case, Code Vein for the Xbox One is my second favourite game of 2019. And now I'm going to try out this heavy tea. I've had it with milk and I've brewed it for 4 minutes, by the way. I think I forgot to mention that earlier. Oh, I can definitely tell the Assam part. It tastes more like an Earl Grey at first, then a bit of an Assam aftertaste. Kind of goes a bit waxy at the end. I'm not a fan of how the Assam degenerates to a worse flavour by the end. I think my nose might be blocked too, because I literally cannot smell anything from this tea, but... First taste is very good. Second taste, the Assam is a good quality, but not really quite to my fancy. Then I don't know, I guess it progresses to a bit of a sweeter Ceylon and then to a more less likeable taste, a bit of a stale taste, as it were, by the end. But that does take a little bit of a while. The sort of stale taste kind of hits the side of the tongue a bit more, but the good flavour. Tip of the tongue to the back. Yeah. So... it's kind of a strange one, because this aftertaste is good at first, but it gradually gets worse and worse, and it leaves a bit of the lingering flavour after the aftertaste, as it were, isn't quite as pleasant. But the initial taste is very good. Very good. A very good initial taste. Decent enough aftertaste, and gets weaker by the end, but... yeah, mixed feelings on that one. Not sure it's the tea I would go for if, given an option, but if it's the tea I was given, I wouldn't have any problems drinking it. And I've got like 9 more to drink, so... again, I can't smell anything. I really must have a cold or something coming on. My sense of smell's never been that great anyway. So those were 2, Medieval and Code Vein, were my number 3 and number 2 game respectively. I haven't played many games, so it seems a bit silly to mention runner-ups, but I guess I can mention what I would have really mentioned for if I had it as a top 6. in the running up for third place was originally, before Medieval came as the late Christmas present, originally it was a competition between Gun Gun Pixies, Ring Fit Adventure, and Pokemon Shield. Ring Fit Adventure I'd probably say is the better of those games as a game. It's got so much love put into it, but it's also a torture device meant to make you suffer and is also like 80 quid due to the accessory. So it's got things holding it back. I really need to get back into it. Pokemon Shield is basically the epitome of one idea I've had, which is fun doesn't equal quality. Because Pokemon Shield and Sword are very fun games, but really when you think of it from a quality standpoint and an objective standpoint, they're not really amazingly well-made games. They are definitely rushed, they're definitely held together by tape, there are definitely a lot of flaws to them. It helps that the Pokemon basis is so good, and there's a lot of elements to it that make it enjoyable, but there's a lot holding back. And Gun Gun Pixies is a very rough game. You can definitely tell it was originally like a PS Vita sort of port sort of thing, but it does surprisingly cool things with its characters and story with themes that aren't usually addressed, and it does one of the most amazing things of making a Mary Sue a very sympathetic and likable character, which is kudos to it. Kudos, and it addresses themes that aren't usually addressed, particularly from a Japanese perspective, and they do it in a really good manner. Despite the perverted matter of the fact, I think the one thing holding Gun Gun Pixies back is its original premise. Sounds more interesting than what it ended up being, but the story themes they approach are actually really good. But those were the games that would have been included in a top 6. I said in a random order there. That wasn't a case of 4, 5, 6 or 6, 5, 4 or whatever. In any case, out of the games I've played, it's time to announce my number 1 favourite game of 2019. It's a surprising one, because I wasn't originally planning to get it. It's a surprising one, because when its Wii U port was cancelled, I was thinking to myself, you know what, I don't want to get this sort of anymore, you know. It's a surprising one, because the only entries of the series that it's a spiritual successor of that I enjoyed and that really played were 3D entries, which are the Black Sheep, and to be fair, not exactly the greatest of games. They were fun, but very, very flawed. So despite everything that wouldn't seemingly appeal to me, despite having no real history to it, I somehow ended up playing this game and having an absolutely mind-blowingly amazing time. I enjoyed it so much. And that is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night for the Xbox One. I was lucky in purchasing it for the Xbox One because my other system I play on is a Switch, and whoo boy, that was a good dodge there, wasn't it? The Switch version is quite buggy, but I luckily got the better made Xbox One version. Not that I never encountered any bugs, but most of those bugs were kind of me trying to push the system to the limit. In that I tried to use the hairdressers whilst transform as a demon bunny girl. And oh gosh, it ended up cutting off Miriam's head. Yeah, that happened. Okay, Bloodstained follows Miriam, a shard binder who is basically a girl who's had like a demon shard placed into her, out to save her friend who seemingly has gone evil from the whole fact that he summoned a giant demon castle to wreak revenge. And he was also a shard binder like her who managed to survive a cruel experiment done by the church who'd put these shards into him in the first place. And yeah, it follows her adventure through a castle. It's a spiritual successor of the Castlevania series. And throughout the adventure, you play in a large Metroidvania game, have to get certain power-ups and beat certain bosses in order to progress to different areas, but otherwise have a lot of different areas you can go to, lots of little hidden secrets. You buy and craft new weapons, and well, every time occasionally when you beat an enemy, you get a shard from them, which gives you unique powers. These can be passive powers, or they can be powers with area effect, which give you access to different areas and allow you to progress in different ways. They can be powers to help you in combat, be it, transformations or projectiles, or they can be familiar allies, which end up helping you out and even do cool little things in certain circumstances. You have the book familiar, for instance. If Miriam sits down, she starts reading the book. If she is the fairy familiar, if Miriam sits down to play the piano, the fairy will start singing. Lots of really cool features like that. And it was just an amazing game. It feels quite different. Again, there's... Okay. Oh, this is actually kind of a consistent thing, actually. It's funny, all 3 of the games kind of, battle against the norm, and not having hit stun being a major thing. Enemies tend to tank hits a lot, and you have to enemies as such attack a bit slower, and you have to be more careful about how you dodge them. Luckily, you got a really cool back dodge sort of thing, which really helps in combat. It's a little bit hard at first to try and figure out which direction you're going to go, but you get the hang of it. There's a huge variety of weapons, and you'll end up finding ones you prefer and ones you end up favoriting. I was originally going to go for the boot weapons, but I ended up getting the Bunny Morphous Shard, which turns Miriam into what is basically a bunny succubus character, a bunny girl succubus character called Lil. And they basically have all the kick things along a kick sort of weapon fighting style with unique abilities to them as well. And you could tear through giant bosses with them so easy. You kind of machine gun kicked them and their health just drops. The game is challenging at first, but I think I was playing on normal mode. I ended up finding it a bit easy, but then again, I was lucky in getting the Bunny Morphous power-up, which is actually, not the most common of drops, and it's actually really powerful, particularly when you get multiple of the Bunny Morphous power-ups. My fighting strategy ended up being, whilst I did experiment with a few other things, ended up being Great Axe Focus. I just got the Great Axe, got a Shard, which gave me the passive effect of increasing my Great Axe weapon skill, and then just swung that repeatedly, dodged backwards whenever I needed to. I, of course, had a bit more range thanks to the Great Axe being such a good distance. And, then I'd swap out the occasional odd of a shard to take advantage of elemental factors and progression factors. But usually I'd have like a shard there for projectiles because, of course, I had a rather slow weapon, so I'd have like a quick projectile. I think it was the lightning one I ended up using. Arc's Lightning. There's lots of cool little... The characters are pretty decent, and there's little cool touches. One of my favourite parts is encountering demons who are actually on the friendlier side of things. It's not too common, but there's something like the carriage driver or the hairdresser or the librarian. There's a lot of fun, and there's this one character who's always getting... The side quests are kind of split up into like 4 different side quests with a character assigned to each of them, but they're pretty entertaining. You're cooking in it, which sadly isn't as in-depth as I'd have wanted it to be, but it's pretty fun hearing Miriam's comments on it and the old lady talking about, her will to live is dependent on food basically, and it's like, I relate to that a lot. Miriam's a great character, wonderful protagonist, and absolutely adorable. She's both tough, but she's got lots of cute touches to her as well. And she's got a really nice design to her as well. So it was actually to the point where I was actually kind of questioning myself, do I want to give her different hairstyles and such? Because I really like her base design. Do I want to change it? I feel like I'm changing it too much. Gets that some ways. You get attached to the original character design, so you're like, I really don't feel like customizing it, but I kind of want to make it feel more personalized to my adventure. But yeah, I absolutely loved Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. There's apparently a bunch of, I think, free DLC coming along in future, so I can look forward to that. Although I'm waiting on that on the basis that, and I will spoil you now on my favourite game of this year, for this year's to-be-commissioned raffle, wherein people on DeviantArt who draw artwork can choose which game one of the games me and Rafi plays this summer. How we're doing it is that 3 of the options were suggested by DeviantArt users. One of them, a couple of the others are based off various other factors, but then one of the choices is from me and one of the choices is from Rafi. And my choice is actually Bloodstained Ritual of the Night as one of the options for people to choose as a potential game to play. I would actually love it. Of course, the other options are also pretty interesting. I would, of course, love to be able to explore through Bloodstained Ritual of the Night and see how it goes with me and Rafi constantly battling over differing fighting styles. I think Rafi, in his playthrough he's done of it so far, mostly focused on guns, so it is very different from my, let's wield the biggest, heaviest, slowest weapon! In any case, I absolutely loved the game. It was so much fun and completely unexpected. I look forward to the future DLC of Bloodstained and particularly the chances of a Bloodstained 2 in the future. It came out of nowhere. It wasn't even something I was talking about as like an anticipated game until last year or anything. I got it on a whim, and it was one of the best whims I ever took. That was amazing. In any case, those are my top 3 games of 2019. I hope you've enjoyed this tea time, and I would love to hear your own thoughts on, well, both on my favourite games of 2019. Do you agree with any of them? Do you disagree? Have you had different experiences with them? And what are your favourite games of 2019? Maybe even make your own top 3. I'd love to hear them. I'd love to be able to discuss I love to discuss gaming in general with people. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tea time. Cheerio!